So welcome everyone. I am the Senior Director of the New York State Trauma Informed Network and Resource Center. It's so great to have you here at our second quarterly network meeting for 2025. We are continuing our conversation that we started at the end of January, where we're really looking at the intersection of leadership and wellness and the different roles within an organization and community to promote those practices. So at our first conversation, we started hearing from our kind of the C-suite, a CEO and a CFO about why it's important to them and what they do to help to promote those practices across their organization. And today's conversation, we're really looking at folks who are more in that middle management role and really play such a critical role in taking kind of that vision and operationalizing it. And so we're really excited to hear from our panelists today and then continue and learn from each other as well. So thank you all for taking the time to be here with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Gwen, and who is going to be our facilitator.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, friends. It's so good to see so many faces on our screen. Yeah, faces on my screen. I'm just grateful. Yeah, anytime I get to gather together with people in real time, synchronously, it's an extra treat when we're in person, but I'm grateful for the technology that allows us to be together in this space for even a short little period of time. So yeah, if we were together and maybe even a little bit of a smaller group, I would want to hear how each of you are doing. I always love to start with a check-in and just know, like, how are you showing up today? How are you feeling as you enter this space? What's alive for you? So just know that I'm holding those questions. I have that curiosity towards you. And I want to invite us into a little bit of a check-in practice that will be with our bodies. I'm going to invite you into some gentle movement and invite you to keep your camera on or off. I'm going to keep my camera on because I'm facilitating it, and I really affirm you for doing whatever works for you. I don't like to have my camera on when I'm moving on Zoom, and so if you want to turn it off, like, please feel free. But yeah, you can do this seated or standing. You can also just not do it if you don't want to. Challenge by choice. Whatever feels good for you in this moment is totally invited and fine. But just going to start with, yeah, a couple breaths, maybe just feeling whatever is going on in your body. Sometimes that helps me to close my eyes. I'm just going to do like a quick kind of scan, a skim even of what's going on in my body. Do I have any aches and pains? Is there any movement that feels good? Am I tightening my neck because I'm looking on a screen? And then I'm going to do an abbreviated practice that I learned from a friend of mine who's a Tai Chi teacher. And I'm going to invite us to take like a big breath in and lift your arms as you breathe in. And then on the exhale, you can drop them back down slowly. You might want to twinkle your fingers a little, wiggle your fingers a little. You can imagine some rain coming back down on you. And we'll do that one more time. When you're ready with your breath, you can do a big breath in. Expanding that diaphragm, lifting up, getting a stretch. Hold for a second. Oh, and then relax. Bring your arms back down. And with our right arm, I'm gonna reach behind me. I might even look behind me, and I'm gonna imagine bringing something from my past, a teacher, a gift I've received, something from my past even today, and bringing that in with a breath. I'm gonna hold it in my heart for a second. And then when I've got an exhale, I'm gonna release it back down to the earth and give the gift back. And then with my left arm, when I'm ready on an inhale, I'm gonna bring something, an intention I want to bring into this space, an intention for how I want to be in this day, how I want to show up for others. I'm gonna hold that in my heart for a moment. And then on an exhale, I'm gonna release that into the earth. And just gonna invite you to come back to the screen when you're feeling ready. Just a quick practice, little bit of breathing together. So grateful to see you all. Thanks for doing that. If you were doing it, and thanks for doing whatever felt good for you to be doing. Yeah, so today is our second quarterly networking meeting. And the purpose of these meetings is for us to learn together and to connect with one another. So we're gonna start off having a little bit of learning together with two panelists that I'll be introducing in a moment. And then we're gonna have an opportunity to connect together in breakout rooms. And of course, you're invited to connect throughout via the chat. And in other ways that work for you, but we've got that time set aside for some space together in breakout rooms. And as Elizabeth was reminding us last time we were together, we were hearing from C-suite folks, right? So people in positions of high leadership in their organization around wellness practices in their organization. And today we want to continue that conversation by talking with folks who are attempting or have their own ways of trying to operationalize and put these ideas into practice at the team level. So we're going to get to discuss and hear from two folks on some of those practical realities of supporting employee wellness in demanding and trauma responsive environments. Yeah, so that's what's on our agenda. We are going to speak with our panelists until about 12:30, 12:35-ish, and then we'll head into breakout rooms. So I want to introduce our panelists. And Jonah and Jonathan, Jonah Crump and Jonathan Morgenstern are our two panelists, and I know them both. They're also instructors with Tending the Roots, so super grateful to you all. I'm going to say just like a couple lines about each of you, and then if there's something important that you want to share or add, I'll invite you to share that as well. So Jonah, so grateful that you're here. Jonah is the Trauma and Trauma-Informed Care Coordinator at Ardent Solutions and oversees innovative strategies, promoting policy change and at local and regional levels. Jonah leads a trauma-informed care coalition, advances collective impact initiatives, focuses on rural communities to promote health and life quality. And Jonathan Morgenstern, Jonathan, thank you for being here, is a licensed clinical social worker with expertise in clinical practice, supervision, administration, and strategic planning. He has experience in lots of areas, including case management and mental health services, dropout prevention. He maintains a private practice and is training in infant mental health services as well. So Jonathan and Jonah, thank you so much for being here. I am going to start by asking you a question, and I'm going to pass to you first, Jonah. So Jonah, you are able to correct anything that I said about your bio or add anything that you'd like. And also, oh, I forgot about my thumbs up bubble. And I also will kick this first question to you. Thinking about your organization's overall wellness strategy, how do you see your role in translating that vision into day-to-day reality for your team?
First of all, nailed the bio, so good job there. We're good. And I think that's the question to me that really resonates with like a middle management role is like that transition from frontline to top. And like in a simple way, I think it's really to make it feel not like a policy, right? And so to take that from policy to just practice in our culture, right? And I think in that middle role, that's the key change, right? So we're often probably getting notice of the policy first, right? And then we are actually taking and applying. So how do we change that from just some words on paper into actually operationalizing, it in a way that makes sense? And you're probably going to hear me say this a bunch, but like recognizing individual needs is where that really shines, right? Understanding who's on our staff, what they're maybe coming in with as lived experience, what some stressors are, maybe how they best connect with wellness, what interventions as a supervisor can I provide them, what support works for them. That's really how I see my role is being on that more personal level outside of just the policy.
Thank you for that response, Jonah. Yeah, it's like one of the ways that you operationalize this is really by knowing people and really getting to know like who you're working with, right? Relationship building. How many times have we talked about that, right? Yeah. Thank you. Jonathan, same question over to you. And again, ability to correct any mistakes with your bio, but thinking about your organization's overall wellness strategy, how do you see your role in translating that vision into day-to-day reality for your team?
That's fine, thank you. Let me say a couple of words about what our organizational wellness structure is, because it operates at several levels. So first there's
Hey, Jonathan, I just want to interrupt you for a second because your audio is a little bit hard. If there's any way you can get real close to your mic, I think it might help.
Is this better?
A little bit. I think if you keep that volume and stay close, sorry for the request, but thank you.
So I wanted to say a few words about what our organizational structure is regarding employee wellness, because it exists at a couple of levels. First, in the HR department, we have a wellness program that's connected to our health coverage, which means that in order to get the most benefit out of your health coverage, maximize the coverage and minimize your out-of-pocket expenses, you need to reach a certain level of wellness, and the organization provides a multitude of activities that employees can participate in as part of their self-care. And should they reach the expected level, they maximize their the benefit and minimize their out-of-pocket expenses. So there's actually a financial incentive to be healthier. There's also an EAP program that's not only available to all employees upon request, but they also provide a whole bunch of trainings and presentations about self-care and well-being that all clients can access at their leisure. In addition to that, we have a book club for employees. And we've got resource groups. The existing resource groups include Latinx Connection, Differing Abilities, Blackness, LGBTQIA+, and multicultural, and more pop up based on staff's requests and recommendations. Moving more to the day-to-day, so obviously it's middle management's responsibility to remind staff of this, that it's available, and to propose it when they see that their employees may be able to benefit from it, because employees don't always think about accessing existing resources. In addition to that, we provide regularly scheduled, responsive, reflective, and trauma-informed supervision. Challenges on a daily basis are addressed and resolved efficiently and collaboratively, and staff are trained to think critically and attempt to resolve challenges independently. And this fosters a sense of belongingness. It cultivates loyalty to the work, realistic expectations, and it has ramifications for staff well-being and staff retention as well.
Yep. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I'm hearing some of these like bigger overall organizational practices. And then one of the things that you named was this idea of reminding and proposing to staff that you're working with around accessing, right? Yeah, but that can be supportive. And also heard you say many things, but one of them around reflective supervision, which I know has been something that's come up a lot with folks around implementing trauma-informed wellness practices with staff. So, you know, Jonathan, you teed us up a little bit thinking about challenges, but I want to ask this question to you both. Again, Jonah, I'll start with you. This idea of, yeah, are there some challenges that you've faced in implementing employee wellness with your team? Like maybe there was a great idea at the organizational level and then implementing it didn't go so smoothly. Just wondering, have you faced some challenges in implementation, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, so I think for most people that are working in helping professions, which I assume are quite a few people that are on this call, one of the biggest things that came up for us, and then not even in just my current agency, but other agencies that I've worked at when it comes to wellness, is that workload conflict. So if we're in this moment of already feeling like we have an overbearing workload, wellness can feel inaccessible because we're already at that point of burnout, and that can become really challenging to kind of peel that back. Especially when, if you're grant funded, right, you're probably being uh, push against deadlines to get reporting done, to chase those numbers. It can feel very robotic. And so when you start to implement this idea of wellness into that day to day that has to already be so efficient because you're already up against this deadline, just connecting with staff can be, we found can be really hard. And as as a manager, as a supervisor, trying to get that curtain back to say like, no, let's step away for an hour and let's reevaluate a little bit, especially when we're talking about years and years and years of this is just how these systems have run, thinking about social services and other systems that are so go, go, go. Taking that step back can be really hard initially. We certainly have experienced that, which leads to lack of engagement and all those other issues and challenges that maybe when we want to roll this out were occurring. It could simply just because they don't feel like they have the time to commit to something else. And I mean, really, it just really requires a lot of creative problem solving kind of mindsets. Because at the end of the day, let's be real, the numbers aren't changing, the goals aren't changing, the end line is probably not changing. So encouraging conversations between frontline staff and middle and upper management to as a team. So how can we creatively, work through that, whether it's cross training a little bit so that we can win available so that people are more able to step in and support. Maybe it's just being very intentional about dedicating the time and adjusting how we're going to approach. We're going to talk about like successes in a little bit. So like I won't jump ahead, but like flex scheduling has been like a huge game changer for us in addressing that. So.
Thank you, Jonah. Yeah, I'm sure this is something I saw lots of resonant head nods, this idea around workload, and that folks feeling like, oh my gosh, how can I put another thing like a wellness practice on my, my to-do list if we're feeling like our workloads are so big. And thank you for also talking about some of these ideas around cross-training and really, in some ways, it taking practice to get in the mode of doing something else, especially when you're working with systems that have been around for a long time and have had the same sorts of burden for a long time. So Jonathan, kicking the question over to you, some challenges you faced implementing employee wellness with your team and anything that you've learned from it.
I would extend from what Jonah started talking about. I think organizations need to take responsibility that if they're going to set, let's call them productivity levels for staff, they have to make sure that they're realistic and they have to make sure that staff has the time and the tools to do the job properly. Otherwise, these are unrealistic expectations. And frankly, unrealistic expectations corrupt systems. So the organization has to take prime responsibility for this. Also, there needs to be mindfulness around working smarter, not necessarily harder. That's also a supervisory and administrative responsibility. How to do the job in the best way possible, not to burn staff out. That cannot be left just to the staff. The staff comes in, many of them are new to the field. They don't have the knowledge and experience to manage the job properly from the first day. That has to be taught, that has to be modeled. So back to the organization and its responsibility, we can all understand productivity levels based on financial constraints, budgets, and so on and so forth. That's fine, but the way that is translated into day-to-day activity for the staff has to be reasonable, and that's an organizational responsibility, not a staff's responsibility.
Yeah, thank you for this, Jonathan. And I'm appreciating the reminders of where responsibility and accountability for certain practices and implementation of things can lie. And really want to lift up this piece that you shared around supporting, especially folks that are newer to a field, to figure out what are these ways of efficiently working? How can we work smarter and not harder? And really that kind of learning, teaching, and mentorship that can be really critical to making sure folks don't burn out. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna kick two more questions to you both, one at a time. I just want you to know that we'll just do two more, because I know you have a list of questions for me. But I'm going to ask you about your successes first, and then a practical tip or piece of advice. But we'll do one at a time here. What are some of your successes with employee wellness? How did you know a strategy or initiative was working? So Jonah, start off with you.
Yeah, and I just want to real quick, something that Jonathan said. One piece that we do a lot of technical assistance with organizations around these topics. One thing I always say to them is burnout is almost always entirely system driven, right? So we don't address burnout at the staff level, we address burnout at the systems level. So thinking about that and putting that in the forefront is really, really a good, and it probably would have been one of my practical tips, but just remembering that like it is a systems issue, not a staff issue. So if you're addressing it at a staff personal level, and it doesn't mean not get their input, but if that's where you're trying to tackle the burnout issue, you're probably just prolonging the inevitable of that burnout. So
Thank you,
but
Jonah.
yeah, successes. I kind of hinted we have gone to like a flex scheduling and a hybrid option in our organization. And this has been really, really crucial just for one, like inefficiency. Like, let's not forget that side. Like being able to work my schedule however I want to meet the needs of my job also makes that easier, right? Which also makes wellness more obtainable if I'm feeling good. Like I have the tools to access and get my job done. There's people actually on the call where I've definitely taken a 6 o'clock at Thursday meeting with some folks even on this call, and it just happened to work in my schedule from a wellness personal perspective, but also a job perspective. So when possible, allowing staff to kind of dictate those, and that has been shared across the board just through feedback. And actually another really big thing is non-performance based check-ins, right, with supervisors. So like we all have an annual review, but let's have, changing it from maybe an annual review to just a quarterly check-in where we're not talking about any sort of performance-based things. We're just talking as people, right? So those are one crucial to getting the feedback to know that initiatives are working, but are equally a great tool to use. And we've had a lot of success with that, both formally and informally too, just making that part of the culture. It kind of becomes that informal sort of piece where maybe we're just having those conversations regularly without even having to schedule them. And then we've done a lot of policy review too. So going back to that piece where it's like, it's system driven. So taking a look at our policies based off of staff feedback, like we just actually revamped our overall, like our annual review process based off of just staff saying that it was really stressful. So just looking at those kind of pieces and just thinking about what you can do from a systems level is also an important piece too.
Thank you, Jonah. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, Jonathan, I'm gonna kick it over to you. Yeah, some successes with employee wellness. How did you know a strategy or initiative was working?
Yeah, so again, to extend from Jonah's comments, staff feedback, direct feedback about how they're feeling in the position, how they're feeling about supervision, how they're feeling about the organization. Staff retention, that's a big proof of whether the organizational attempts at keeping the staff are working, and evidence of morale. So I keep an eye on that through the individual supervisions and the staff meetings that I facilitate. It's not difficult to tell when staff's happy or they're not happy. And I also attempt to cultivate an atmosphere in which people feel free to talk about that, whether they're happy or not happy. It's not perceived as disloyal to the organization, or it's not perceived as something that, if it's shared, punishment will soon follow. I'm currently in mental health, so it's particularly important for me to practice good mental health across the board. So that doesn't mean just good therapy to the clients. That means good interactions among everybody in the clinic, in every direction, whether it's with the admin staff, the clinical staff, whether it's with administration, with visitors. It's a holistic approach. It's leading by example. It's demonstrating things that work, and with the expectation that they be practiced equally across the board. It's also used as a way to practice equality in action. Because if you maintain equality of expectation in any area, and you apply it equally to everybody, no exceptions, then you're practicing equality. So it becomes part of that effort as well. I think that.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you both. Oh, so many rich responses in here. And I'm gonna just dive right into this last question and ask you just both to be, like 1 to 2 minutes with this one. What's one practical tip or piece of advice you'd give other supervisors in this network who are looking to improve employee wellness within their teams? Jonah.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was reflecting on this question, it came back to one thing. Remember that wellness is proactive, not reactive, right? So I think a lot of times when we're thinking about this, it's like you're feeling stressed out, so we're providing the intervention, do some deep breathing, get up and go for a walk. And sure, those are wellness-based things, but that's a reactive response. We want the proactive built into the system so that we can lessen the impact of maybe that toxic stress or mitigate it altogether. So when we're thinking about our policies, let's not always make them in response to something. Let's just make them so that we're pushing this forward. I always think about it as a teeter-totter, right? We don't practice wellness because stress doesn't exist. We practice wellness because stress does exist, right? And that's always going to exist. So think of stress on one side. Wait, wellness is that thing that makes that teeter-totter balance out, right? So the more we build onto that other side, the more, we can maybe keep ourselves in balance. We can, expand our window of tolerance, expand our resiliency zones, but also mitigate the effects. So think proactive, not always reactive.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonah. Yeah, Jonathan, over to you. A practical tip or piece of advice you could give other supervisors.
That's a tough one to follow because I completely agree with Jonah. But if I had to come up with something, maybe it's everybody needs to revisit the area of trauma-informed practice. And first of all, most of us think that we already know everything we need to know about trauma. And yes, a lot of us know a great deal, but there's new information coming out all the time. Most importantly, how do we take that information and implement it into our daily practice so that it spreads from us in concentric circles and influences all the frameworks within which we are connected. Trauma today embodies the whole area of discrimination and equality. And trauma is something that affects everybody equally, which means that by practicing this and applying it equally across the board to everybody, services recipients, service providers at all levels, doesn't matter who in the organization, everybody becomes trauma informed. It literally shifts the lens through which we see the other person, and it creates an equality that we need to promote. So I guess that would be the one thing that I would promote at this point.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Jonathan. Huge round of applause. We can do a little virtual. You can do some applause any way that works for you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, super appreciate you. And we may have just a little bit of time for questions after we come back from the breakout rooms, but I want to give us an opportunity to take a breath in because we're going to pivot to breakout rooms. So we're going to go from more of the passive listening role hopefully you're active listening to that more active role of engagement in your breakout room. So invite you to take a breath as we transition here. So in a moment, we're going to open up breakout rooms, and we want to give you an opportunity to join a breakout session in your region. So you'll be able to choose a breakout room that aligns with your region. And yeah, once you're in there, invite you to, kick off the conversation, get it going, or choose a facilitator. We are all leaders in different ways, leaders of our own lives. We can get in there and lead a conversation. You just are going to have some question prompts in your chat box that we invite you to use, but you can talk about whatever feels most alive for you. So these questions are: what did you hear the panelists share that resonated for you? After listening, did you hear any concrete actions or strategies you'd like to try? Do you have any questions for the panelists? So those are our questions. Invite you to take some notes. We're not going to have one space, but if there are things that you want to take with you, invite you to take some notes. And we'll have a little bit of an opportunity for a debrief and questions and answers when you come back. Take 1 minute. I'll be, totally silent for 1 minute. And I'm going to invite you to write something in the chat that you appreciated or learned in your breakout room, but don't hit enter until I say. This is very demanding of me, but I want to do a little chat waterfall so that we get all of the responses at once. So take just a minute, type in the chat what's something that you learned or are taking with you, or a question you have for one of the panelists. You can put any of those in the chat, and then in 1 minute I will ask you to hit enter. So I'm going to be silent for 1 minute starting now. About 10 more seconds. Okay, and if you're still typing, that's okay. But if you're done typing, I would love for you to hit enter in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, I like watching the little red counter at the bottom. 27 new messages. All right. Amazing. I'm just gonna read a couple of these out. It is not based on me summarizing, just gonna pick some. Yeah, ideas about how to encourage change within the agency, weaving wellness into current initiatives and activities to avoid the idea of making time for wellness, being proactive, people's willingness to bring their change to a group, yeah, of unfamiliar folks, human agency, and then we all need to learn about trauma and show the way. Yeah, some new ideas haven't considered. Beautiful. More coming in. Yeah, showing how the practices within your program are working versus telling in order to initiate change, make people curious. Yeah. Something that's standing out to me with both Jonah and Jonathan, your sharing of really, I was hearing like this parallel process or this holistic approach of you embodying and living out those trauma-informed and trauma-responsive values, and really emphasizing and lifting up that we can't just speak about it, we have to be about it, right? And so really hearing you both being about it today, and really naming when things are or aren't working, and why they may not be working or what could work better for staff. So appreciate you both. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for our panelists for today, and to all of you for showing up and contributing to what I'm sure was rich conversation in each of your breakouts. Want to remind you that you can email us if you have follow-up questions for the panelists. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and then, of course, there's the TINRC email. Feel free to reach out to us if you have follow-up questions. We'll be sending out notes, and really want to remind and encourage you to come to our next one on July 30th. It'll be Wednesday, July 30th, from at noon. So thank you all. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Talk soon.